All right, so technology has been moving crazy fast in recent years. And if you don't believe me, take a look at all of these apps on my phone that are requesting microphone access. Microphone, they want to listen to what you're saying, right? Because that can be used in so many different ways. So your interest and your preferences are at the top of the list for these companies to try to figure out. They need to figure out what kind of ads to put in front of you, what you're going to buy, where you're going to be. And, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're really worried about all your personal information and people knowing what you're doing and you're wearing a smartphone, you got to do a lot of things to keep all those tracking devices off, right? Because it's got your location. It knows where you are. It knows whether you're walking. It knows whether you're driving by the miles per hour you're going. And if you're Bluetooth connected to your car, it knows which vehicle you're in. So, these smartphones know a lot of things. Me personally, I'm not too awfully worried about it, but there are some things I'm going to turn off on my phone today for you that'll show you to keep from, it eavesdropping into your personal conversations. So in recent years, these companies, Android, iPhone, and the different makers, Google, they haven't really been, real sneaky about it. But what they've done is they put in these helpers, little helpers, right? To help us with voice-actuated different types of searches that we can do. Well, in order for these to work, they have to listen to you at all times because like on my phone, I've got to say, "Hey Siri," and it will respond to, "Yes, what can I help you with?" or whatever it says. I don't have my phone near me, or it probably would have done it. So by allowing our phones to listen to all of our conversations all the time, they're not being real sneaky because you can turn it off. You can turn those things off. But while they're on, if you don't turn them on, it is listening to everything you say. So when I hear all the warnings out there about, identity theft and getting your personal information and whatnot, you got to be careful. But again, I take some of that, not as seriously as I probably should. But, take for instance, I only use one credit card for online purchases. Now that credit card changes numbers at least once a year because it gets hacked into. And the card I use, if they're really good about calling me and saying, "Hey, we think you've been compromised. Would you like us to shut your card off? Or was this you that made this purchase in Taiwan," or wherever it may be, and I'll get the card shut off. And of course I can't use it, until they send me a new card with new numbers, and then I got to change it in some of my recurring payments that I have. And it's kind of a pain, but it's never cost me anything. The companies have never charged me anything, so I feel fairly comfortable in that. And I also use a separate bank account, because I do have a YouTube channel. I have a Buy Me a Coffee, for people who want to donate to the channel and things like that. And I have a separate bank account for that. And I don't keep a lot of money in there. That's basically just a buffer between my personal bank account and the internet. So I think that's a good idea. But I will generally never give out my personal information as far as banking accounts, my social security number, and my birth date. Sometimes I will give out the year I was born, because that's not a big deal, but I don't like giving out my birth date if I don't have to. My social security is a no-go. There's been a lot of times I've wanted to sign up for something and it gets that social security number and I say, "Nope, that's a no-go for me." So you just got to be careful. And of course, anybody who calls you on the phone and wants this information, again, they're more than likely probably scammers, unless it's somebody A lot of times it'll be a doctor's office or something like that. I do like the fact that most of the time when people ask for anything on your social, it's the last four numbers, and that doesn't give them the full social security number. So if you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, that's baloney, my phone's not listening to me, and you want to test it out and you haven't turned these things off yet, go ahead and pick something out, something that you wouldn't normally talk about or worry about. Say like a boat engine. You know, take a boat engine and say, how many cylinders does a boat engine have? You know, how reliable is a boat engine? And, you know, just talk about a boat engine. How does the cooling work for a marine engine, for a boat engine? Things like that. And do that for a minute or so with your phone right there with you, and it activated, you know, the Hey Siri or Google or whatever, however you have it. And then go into, say, your Facebook or your Instagram and take a look at that and see if there aren't some weird things that are popping up, some advertisements that you hadn't seen before. And it works that way on YouTube, TikTok, and any of these companies that advertise. And that's what a lot of these companies are using your information for. They are targeting you for advertisements. So there are about 150 million Americans that use these voice-actuated helpers, right? And yes, that means your phone is listening to you all the time, that it's turned on. And yes, it is legal because you have the choice to turn it off. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through the steps it takes to turn these off, at least on my iPhone. And it's out there on the internet, you know, whatever kind of phone you have. If you have a Google Pixel or you have an Android, you know, based phone, you can get those different steps and go through the same thing. But let's go ahead and go through it with my phone. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go into the settings, and then we're going to select Siri. And then we're going to go to Talk to Siri, and then we're going to simply turn that off. And then what that's going to do basically is just show, or not show, it's typically what it's going to do is just turn Siri off so that it's not listening to me all the time. Now the next thing we're going to do is go in and turn all these apps off that have access to our microphone so they're not listening. So from there we're going to go into Settings, Privacy and Security, the microphone, and then you can see all these different apps that are requesting access to my microphone. And we're going to go ahead and turn all those off. And you know, that's personal. Some of them you may want to leave on. So there's a lot of other things you can do to keep your phone safe and keep your personal information safe. And I'd suggest you go ahead and get online and do some of those, but this is a good start. And I know a lot of you have been sitting there and going, I would swear my phone is listening to me. Well, guess what? It is. So if you found this video useful, reach down, hit that like button, and watch this video next.